It was the winter of 1943, and London had learned to live with the sound of sirens. Every night, the city dimmed its lights, hiding its shame and its secrets beneath the fog. That's when she appeared. No one knew her real name. The files later called her Evelyn Ward. She worked at a small government office, cataloguing letters that never reached their destination. Every day she read the words of soldiers who didn't know they'd already died. Before we begin, I just want to say, I work hard to bring you stories like this, so if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider it. It means a lot, and it helps me keep uncovering the truths most people don't want to see. One of those letters changed everything. It was addressed to Captain Thomas Hale, a man she'd never met, but it spoke of something strange, a transfer order, a missing codebook, and a warning not to trust anyone inside his unit. By the time she delivered it, Evelyn had already made up her mind. She would make the captain trust her, and then she would destroy him. No one in Whitehall asked where she came from. In wartime, people arrived and disappeared every day. But Evelyn wasn't running from bombs. She was running from her past, and toward revenge. Some say she was working for the British. Others whisper she was part of a Soviet ring. The truth? It's darker than either. Because in 1943, London wasn't just fighting Germany, it was fighting itself, through secrets, lies, and the quiet war of manipulation, and Evelyn Ward was about to become its most dangerous weapon. Captain Thomas Hale was the sort of man propaganda posters loved. Clean uniform, cold eyes, a smile that didn't reach his face. He'd survived Dunkirk. He'd seen men drown for lack of orders. Since then, he'd trusted no one, not even the people under his command. When Evelyn first entered his office, she didn't salute. She simply placed the letter on his desk and waited. Hale opened it, frowned, and asked how she got it. She said, "I make sure words find their way to the right people." It was the sort of answer that intrigued a man like him. Over the next weeks, Evelyn became his shadow. She brought him reports, tea, silence, whatever he needed. She learned his habits, his doubts, the little cracks in his discipline, and when the time came, she began to feed him lies wrapped in truth. Small, careful details about officers moving funds, secret messages hidden in requisitions, nothing large enough to draw suspicion, just enough to make him question his own men. By spring, Captain Hale had dismissed 3 of his closest officers. He didn't realize that each dismissal gave Evelyn more control. In a war built on deception, she was rewriting the battlefield, one doubt at a time. By June, Evelyn had gained access to the restricted map room, a vault of troop movements and supply lines. The key had belonged to one of the dismissed officers. Hale didn't ask why she still had it. Every night she entered the room alone, copying details onto cigarette papers, then burning the originals. But what she did next baffled everyone who studied her case later. She didn't send those details to the enemy. She buried them, literally buried them, in a tin box beneath a ruined church near Hampstead Heath. Historians still argue about her motive. Was she protecting secrets from both sides, or was she saving evidence for something bigger, something that hadn't happened yet? Captain Hale began to notice things missing. A map corner torn, a logbook misfiled, whispers in the corridors. He confronted Evelyn one night, demanding answers. She simply looked at him and said, "You're fighting the wrong enemy, Captain." That sentence haunted him for the rest of his life. By autumn, the pressure inside the intelligence office had turned poisonous. Reports leaked, couriers vanished, messages arrived in cipher forms no one recognized. Hale started drinking, not heavily, just enough to make mistakes. Evelyn began covering for him, protecting his reputation while quietly rewriting his reports. She became indispensable, the woman who kept the captain from collapsing. And then, just as quietly, she turned him into a liability. When the Allied Counterintelligence Division intercepted coded transmissions from within London, suspicion fell on Hale's office. Every path led back to his desk. to orders he'd supposedly signed, reports under his name. He never realized the signature wasn't his. It was Evelyn's, practiced perfectly over months, written with the same pressure, the same tilt. When investigators arrived, she was the first to testify. Calm, loyal, believable. Hale was arrested within days. The interrogation lasted 47 hours. Hale refused to confess, claiming he'd been framed. But the evidence, the documents, the signatures, the witnesses, all pointed to him. Evelyn sat behind the one-way glass, watching. The officers believed she was there to verify intelligence protocol. She knew better. She was there to make sure he broke. And he did. Not from pain, but from confusion. When asked who could have betrayed him, he said, "No one, not her." That was the moment Evelyn closed her file, stood up, and walked away. 3 weeks later, Captain Thomas Hale was dishonourably discharged and vanished from record. Some say he ended his life. Others believe he was recruited by a secret branch operating in the East. Only Evelyn knew the truth. In 1950, 7 years after the war, a letter surfaced in a diplomatic pouch in Berlin. It was unsigned, written in the same slanted hand that had doomed Captain Hale. It read, "The enemy was never across the channel. The enemy sat at the same table, smiled the same smile, and toasted to victory while the world burned." The letter was traced to an apartment once rented under Evelyn Ward's name, though the name itself turned out to be an alias. The neighbours remembered her as quiet, elegant, always watching. She disappeared sometime around 1948. Some say she married an American officer. Others think she was killed in Prague. But in the declassified archives of MI5, there's one final note beside her file. Agent unknown. Objective achieved. Decades later, when the classified files were opened, historians tried to reconstruct what really happened. Some called her a traitor, others a patriot. But every surviving record agrees on one thing. She changed the war without ever firing a bullet. The Evelyn Ward incident, as it came to be known, exposed an entire chain of corruption inside the Allied command. Dozens of officers were removed, entire operations rewritten. And yet her own motives remain a mystery. Was it revenge, justice, or the pure thrill of power over those who once held it over her? Whatever her reason, Evelyn Ward vanished like smoke. All that remains is the photograph found years later. A woman standing beside a uniformed man, his eyes trusting, hers unreadable. On the back, the same handwriting reads, "Forgive me, I had to choose."